The year was 1911. RMS Tyrrhenian was the finest liner on the Atlantic. She was a successful gamble for the Canadian Mercantile Marine Company, once again bringing Canada back into the world stage of transatlantic travel. Though the ship was impressive, it was clear she needed a sister ship to stay afloat, figuratively, among the Atlantic competition. This sister ship would need the generally same specifications, same size, same length, same speed, and same luxuries. This would come into the form of the Ligurian, a very similarly sized vessel to the Tyrrhenian, 45,000 gross registered tons. She would serve as a companion once in service on the Atlantic. Ligurian was launched by the wife of the liege engineer of both Tyrrhenian and Ligurian, her name being Maria Cole Conemaugh, on April 10, 1912. At the same shipyard Tyrrhenian was both, Swan Hunter and Wigham Richardson of Walsall, a city along the River Tyne. Unlike Tyrrhenian, she would not enjoy a brief time being the largest ship in the world. RMS Olympic of the White Star Line had claimed that title already, followed by the RMS Titanic. From laying the keel to starting sea trials, Ligurian would take a total of 665 days to complete. Her main voyage began on February 22, 1914. Much unlike Tyrrhenian still, there was less interest in Ligurian. Despite having the ability to felicitate some 2,300, only 12,082 would board her for her main voyage. This was likely due to the fact Olympic and Titanic were already on service. To separate her from Tyrrhenian, she had a couple differences, most importantly gantry davits. These allowed the ship to launch lifeboats despite having a large list towards port to starboard theoretically. Reporting to Canada via wireless telegraph to Cape Race, the public already had a good idea of life on board, and were rather delighted. As she rode into New York, thousands gathered to watch the wonderful ship. Despite being built in the old world of Europe, she was truly welcomed, and brought as a ship from the New World. With the outbreak of World War I, much like Tyrrhenian, the Ligurian would too be converted into a troop carrier. However, this would last for a short while. In late 1915, as casualties started to skyrocket across all the fronts of World War I, she was converted into a hospital ship. The white stripes were unintentional, but remained throughout the war. The ship made regular trips throughout the Mediterranean, avoiding any kind of attack from German U-boats. A majority of her voyages took her into places such as Cairo in British-controlled Egypt, Marseille, France, as well as Gibraltar and Malta, even sailing into Greece once the Greek joined the war. At day, her white hull shone among the ocean. At night, the green lights along the hull were stars among the cosmos of the glass-flat sea. This earned her the nickname, the Glistening Green Dot. On June 20th, 1917, while sailing from Gibraltar to Malta in the Tyrrhenian Sea, the ship would strike a mine on her starboard bow. Pumping efforts quickly began. She struck another 30 minutes later. Small panic began as the complement of nurses and the few wounded on board began to fear that Ligurian may share the same fate as Britannic less than a year earlier. The crew maintained control, refusing any lifeboats to launch while still sailing. The ship had been sailing near the coast of French Tunisia, and Ligurian quickly turned to race for the beaches. She beached near the city of Tunis, the capital of the French Protectorate. Evacuation efforts started at 7:22 in the morning. Thanks to quick efforts of the crew and the patience of the passengers, the ship would be salvaged after the war and returned to service for the Canadian Mercantile Marine Company. After World War I, Ligurian continued to be second place among the Canadian Mercantile Marine Company's liners. Their new liner, Ionian, was grander. Thracian, however, was cancelled due to shifting efforts towards wartime production, but still, Ligurian served the CMMC valiantly. As Ligurian returned to service after World War I and being raised by the French, she had a substantial increase in passengers on board, many fleeing scorched Europe for the New World. On many voyages, she was fully booked. After Tyrrhenian sinking in May 1925, Ligurian too faced a decline in passengers. However, the decline was not substantial, as passengers soon came back up to the same numbers as before the sinking. Still, new and updated liners were being added to the fleet. The Ville de Calgary was smaller, but had a new style known as Style Moderne, which was the old name for the Art Deco style. Ville de Vancouver came in 1924 and replaced Tyrrhenian as a fellow running mate to Ligurian after the sinking. Still, the fleet never recovered. Near the end of the 1920s, Ligurian continued to decline in sales and popularity. A new age had begun, the ship of the state. Ligurian was a ship of the past, that of the regal tall funnels of the 1910s and earlier. It was clear that her service, at least for the wider public, was coming closer and closer to an end. In the early years of the 1930s, the Canadian Mercantile Marine Company introduced two new ships to the line, the Ville de Montreal and Ville de Quebec, taking over as the main attraction for the line. After their entrance into service, Ligurian would be converted into a full-time cruise ship, becoming one of the largest of its kind at the time. After conversion, Ligurian would calmly sail into the Mediterranean, as she did in the First World War. Calmly, she sailed to La Spezia, Marseille, and Athens, her hull painted white, with the company's funnel red running across it in a thin red line. The ship was due to be scrapped by 1939. However, other things across the world were beginning to get into toil. And of course, the plans to scrap her were themselves scrapped. At the outbreak of the Second World War, Ligurian once again returned to service for the Royal Navy, specifically as a hospital ship, as she did in World War I. In 1942, she was transferred to the Pacific Stage and stationed in Sydney, Australia throughout the duration of the war. There, she gained the name Lilifontaine. Ligurian, now named the Lilifontaine, would remain in Sydney, moving with American ships wherever the island hopped, usually warships, and escorted, just to remain safe from Japanese submarines and aircraft. They didn't want to end up like the Renown and Prince of Wales, after all. Near the end of the war, The funnels were braided with a red top. After the end of the Second World War, the Lily Fontaine would remain in service with the Royal Navy for 2 more years, escorting the wounded back home to Australia, Canada, and Britain, as well as many of the survivors of the war. In 1948, after multiple shifts through private owners, the ship would begin service under the United States Navy, registered in Baltimore, Maryland, and given the new name Charity. Charity would commonly sail the Pacific as the United States reconstructed during the war, mostly in Japan. After, she was docked long-term in Hong Kong as a normal hospital for normal patients. In 1955, the Charity was showing its age. Parts of the ship had become rusted, and it was clear she was from a far, far bygone era, no longer fit for the 50s. On August 6, 1955, the Charity would make her way for Taiwan, under her own power for the last time, before powering down one last time right outside the shipbreakers of the port of Kaohsiung. Charity would arrive in the port of Kaohsiung, Taiwan, on August 12, 1955, and would be scrapped slowly until scrapping was completed in 1959. The Ligurian was all gone, a distant memory for few to remember.